Good afternoon, Maverick traders. Currency recap time. Joe with you here on the 28th of May, which means it is actually a Thursday. I'm getting towards the end of the month here rather quickly. You guys know how this works. First thing I'm going to do is talk about the meaningful news of the day. Let's take a look at things technically, and if I got some trades to share, you know I'm going to do it.
All trades and analysis in this video are intended for professional traders only. This content does not constitute financial advice and is for educational purposes. This video is being released after a short delay due to Compliance Department review. Maverick members receive this content immediately as part of their daily trading resources. If you're ready to level up, consider joining Maverick Currencies. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits. You bring the skill, we provide the backing. Let's get into today's market recap and see how the pros are trading the currency markets.
As we move into the market analysis, it was pretty much a flat day across everything. So the first thing let's get into is kind of the news of the day. So the U.S. markets struggle to hold gains, even with a positive NVIDIA earnings announcement. Now, I was thinking this was going to push things up. NVIDIA's this big darling, and it actually did. So the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 itself actually did gap up this morning, but slowly and surely kind of sold off as they got towards the end of the day. They did close a little higher than expected, but a lot less than where they opened. So I'm going to call this flat. We did get some economic news out of the U.S. The GDP was lower. The expectations were a drop of 0.3%. It actually came at 0.2%, so less than expected, but it was a drop. So a little bit of concerns there, and it was associated with a little bit of an uptick in unemployment claims. Unemployment claims have been pretty steady, but this was the first little bit of an uptick, about 14,000 jobs. But it might be enough to kind of rattle some cages. However, I believe it's actually just kind of where we are technically. So we'll get there here in a second. So how did we finish currency-wise? Well, the yen up slightly. Dollar dropped a little bit, as you'd expect. The franc and the euro, I saw the franc just kind of hanging in there, but the euro had a decent little push, and I think that could be just kind of a carryover. Some of the negotiations and kicking that can down the road when it comes to tariffs. The pound, CAD flat, Aussie, Kiwi all flat, so not a lot of movement in our majors. Let's get to the rest here. So the S&P, like I said, it was a lot higher, but it did manage to close just shy of 0.5%. World index falls in line. Crypto's down 1.7% as a group, and it kind of felt more like a market correction. So when the market's correct, the crypto usually goes down, and that's kind of what I was seeing in everything outside of what the markets did, which is more consolidating. Gold up a little bit, which would kind of associate with the dollar dropping, and then oil had a pretty good slip back down to the downside. So here's the cryptos. They're fun to watch, but volume-wise, or I should say percentage-wise, I've seen worse. And you'll see in some of their charts, the volatility just goes so far back and forth, but the overall didn't really do much, more of a corrective action in those. So my outlook is not going to change, and you guys are going to see here in a second. I'm going to keep it at a +2 because we do have that high base going on. So let's just go straight to it. And this is what I see. So here's that gap up. You guys can see that we did gap up, traded lower, and then climbed back a little bit just to kind of close flat there off the bottom. But, giving up, I think, that first move probably kind of took away from, hey, this is a really beautiful pivot point that we saw with that gap the other day. And my expectations are for this to actually come a little bit higher and break above that resistance. Let me get rid of my lines here, folks, and you can see that we gapped almost to that point. But, I guess we'll just call it 6,000 just for ease of number. But you can see it had a good push. It still got this gorgeous pattern, right? But it's going to be kind of a push-pull going on right now. So I'd expect kind of more of the same. Could just be reactions to, throw a dart. You'll find something to react to. However, once price action decides to move above that area, I'm definitely in there. If it doesn't, then we'll see where it goes. So no real change. It really doesn't give us much to go on. Now, that's even on the equity side. I mean, this is what we're talking about. But currency-wise, stuff is starting to flatten. Let's get into some of the economic data over the last little bit. The one that I'm going to focus on right here, folks, is this preliminary GDP Q over Q, so quarter over quarter. Now, Expectations were for a drop of 0.3%. It was 0.2%. So, geez, is that good? Well, it's not good. It's negative, but it's not as negative as it was expected to be. Now, what I don't like about this GDP number is you're going to get a revision and then a second revision. And by the time we hear those numbers, we're already almost through Q2. So we'll see how the markets react. I don't think it's so much what the number says, it's how the markets react. Here's that unemployment claims I was talking about. Expected a little bit of an increase from 226 to 229. We actually got 240. So it is a little bit of a bump up. It's nothing to write home about, but it's kind of going in the direction of maybe some of the pessimism out there and some of the worries, which might have flattened out these markets. I'm not going to put too much on it. It's just kind of what it is. So that's what we're dealing with. What do we got left? Well, the Canadian GDP, that's coming up here on Friday. We got the PCE price index in the U.S. Past that, I don't think we're going to get much announcements outside of the unexpected that's going to move these markets. So let's just jump into the currency analysis and see what we did. So here's the yen today. Remember, it had a move to the upside, one of the few, but not anything to write home about. Just a little bit of a bounce there in the last little bit. We still have this downward slope, a little bit back up on the RSI, but it's flattening. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, I'm not too excited about it. I really don't want to change things too far off of where you had them. It is, to me, just a bear rally, so I'm going to keep this kind of at a -1. Just because of the slope of this moving average and the reluctancy of this RSI to get above that 50. So I'm going to keep that -1. Let's jump to the US. The US, I'm going to keep flat. It did look like it was doing pretty good. Nice search to the upside, turned the moving average. Good move on the RSI, but it just kind of flattened and petered out. So it could just be consolidating. It might be in a pullback. You guys could see it's kind of at this level here where it might find a nice reverse head and shoulders, right? Is that what we call this? The W for win? We'll see. But for now, I'm just going to keep it flat because it could easily retrace all the way back down to this lower pivot point before it maybe breaks above this one. So it is a wide range if you take a look at it, but keeping it flat probably makes the most sense. Jumping into the franc, this was a little bit stronger, and now I really wanted to move the franc to kind of a +1 action. I think the only reason why I didn't on the velocity is because I think this is a big resistance. We did see a little bit of a consolidation through this area, and it did widen its range a little bit lower here, a little bit higher there. So if it pulls back, well, we're back to a 0 here, but if it can base for a minute and maybe threaten this line, I'd be okay moving it from that 0 that I got it at now to a +1. But it just seems expanded, and I don't think it's too exciting in either direction right now. The euro being one of the strongest currencies today, very similar, however, like the franc, very similar. However, what I did like about it is exceeding some of these price levels. It's almost, well, actually it is, so it's above that. So they have a very similar pattern, the franc and the euro, but I'm going to give the euro a +1 because of the fact we had a move of the RSI above that 50, it's flattening, and 2 price points that it's above. This could easily fall back down, folks, I know. So if you're comfortable with the 0, that's great, but I'm going to give it a little bit more of a +1, maybe some of the clarity when it comes to negotiations with the U.S. and tariffs. You could see I'm reaching here, folks, because price action is pretty difficult as of late when it comes to these currencies. Moving over to the pound, one of my favorites. However, it seems to just be bleeding off. Now, it still does have my nice little line that I do like, but this has just been a little anemic, this slow bleed, kind of discerning. It's actually really taken it off the outperformance or my strong list. You could see that the RSI has slipped a little bit lower. It's not like it's falling apart or anything, but it is just kind of bleeding itself out of stability here. We'll see if that changes, but right now it's just kind of in a no-go area for me. Let's take a look at the CAD. Here's the CAD. I've got this at a 0 as well. I like how it did come up over the last few days, and it's kind of stabilizing. The range is wide. It's back and forth, but it's up here. A little bit of a slip here on the RSI showing it might be a little bit weak, but I'm not going to condemn that because I do like the fact that it's kind of in this, it's above some of these support levels. We'll see if it can turn back around. I'm more than happy to keep it at a 0. If it gets back up to here, then yeah, a +1, but pretty much flat for now. Let's go to our risk on currencies. This is the Aussie. Now the Aussie was kind of flattening, and for one moment, folks, I thought it was actually going to contain itself and move higher. Now it's actually slipped lower. Now I might be looking too far into this, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a slope here, a little bit of reluctancy. I've only seen a couple times this RSI has been above that 50 for any while. So I could be glass half empty, maybe a quarter empty. So I can give it a -1 just because of this a little bit of dissension. Now, I'm not going to attack it as a -1, but I'm just going to leave it out of favor when it comes to strength. On the other side of risk on, the Kiwi is substantially better. And now what I like about it, it's doing almost the opposite, isn't it? We've got higher highs going on. Well, two at least. We can see if it pivots here. A little bit of a break above a previous high there. Sorry, folks, I meant higher lows if I didn't say that. But look at the RSI. It seems to spend most of its time above that 50, so it's a little bit more in favor. Now, I believe it's pulling back. It was easy for me to give this a +1, even with the last couple of candles here. So if it can sustain a higher high or higher low, above that, and start to move back, I'll keep it at that +1. So as far as the risk on currencies, it's my favorite there. So let's do a quick look over on our cryptos. This is Bitcoin, and it just seems to be rolling over. I noticed that when the markets go stable or they consolidate or pull back, so do these. It's just this big move. It's a little bit of a rollover. It's to the downside. Sure. I mean, this thing is Bitcoin to me. It's actually -2 if you want to look at it velocity wise. We got a drop below the 50 on the RSI down. We got a break on price. We got a rollover on the SARS. We got a rolling moving average. I went -2. You can go -3. However, the overall trend, yeah, we know how quick these can flip-flop. So since we're just doing the velocity score here, folks, I'm going to keep it at a -2. Now, the other ones aren't so bad. They're more consolidating. Here's cash, a little bit of a wide range, but kind of sideways on the RSI, sideways here, flip-flop SARS. Ethereum, kind of the same idea. In fact, I put Ethereum as a +1 because I've got some higher highs here and some higher highs and higher lows. If it can consolidate and move higher, Ethereum will be their outperformer. So easy +1 on that. And then Litecoin, more of a consolidation. I went -1 on Litecoin because the equal highs here and a little bit of a break here on the lows. So more of a low base consolidation. RSI staying below that 50. A little bit out of favor, but you guys can score it as such. So this is my velocity score for today. Everything kind of moved back into the middle, and I refer to it as a flattening process going on, which really, really messes with pairing. So I don't have anything for us today. The only thing I have is we need to stay patient and allow these things. Once they're done consolidating, we will see emergence. Keep an eye on the euro. I think that might be kind of interesting. And the Kiwi. Those are the two that I thought might be emerging to the strong side. Past that, folks, it's reaction, reaction, reaction. And honestly, when it comes to possible trades, folks, I'm just going to leave it to whatever you guys have been looking at the last few days. So that's what I got. Flattening across most of the major pairs today. We did get some U.S. numbers. A move to the upside that kind of failed on the NASDAQ and the S&P. But however, still in a higher base range, very optimistic when it comes to that overall market. The dollar slid a little bit just because of some concerns and worries. We did see an increase in unemployment, slight. We did see that negative tick in GDP. So who knows what happens tomorrow, right? So crypto did pull back with the market consolidation. I also saw a gold move. That would be what I would expect when it comes to consolidation or corrective action in a market. So far, it's just everything's kind of flat and kind of reacting as, hey, here we are, we're basing. Where do we go next? So just play that relative strength and weakness. And folks, I'm kind of happy that I didn't come up with anything today because sometimes you just shouldn't trade. Let's sit on our hands and see what happens over the next day or so. All right, folks, thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.